meeting for January the 7th to order at this time. It is customary for us to begin our meetings with a prayer by a commissioner. During this time, you're welcome to stand and join us in that prayer. You're welcome to use it as a moment of silence or use it for a prayer of your own liking, whichever you prefer. And after the prayer, we'll have Wayne Outlaw. Wayne, you got a brother named Danny. That's where that came from. Wayne Outlaw lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I'd like to call on Miss Richardson to lead us if she would.
Thank you. Let's stand. Dear God of grace and of mercy, we, your humble servants, bow this morning to say thank you for the blessings that you have bestowed upon us. Thank you for the year that has passed. Thank you for our successes and all that we tried to do. We thank you even for the failures we have, because when we fail, that gives us another determination to work harder and to look to you for directions. We ask you to bless us through this new year. Help us to look to you for everything that we need and put you first, and we will be successful. Bless our nation and keep us safe, and grant us mercy when we fail. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Would you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. We're now on item number 4 on our agenda, which is approval of the minutes, and unusual, but we have one set of minutes to approve only from our regular meeting of December the 3rd. At this time, I'd entertain any changes or addition to the minutes or possibly a motion to approve.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Minutes stand approved. Ladies and gentlemen, on item 5, it is a area that we have every commissioner meeting, the first one of the month, to allow anyone from the public to come before the board and present anything that you wish to talk to the board about, any questions you may have, concerns. We do ask that you sign up prior to the meeting. We have a sheet out front. This morning, I didn't have anyone to sign up, but if you happen to miss that part of it and are here to speak to the board on any item that's not otherwise covered on the agenda, we'd be glad to hear from you at this time. Anyone wish to speak to the board? We've got a fairly long run of speaking to us. We might need to do something, commissioners, to stir some interest up in our what we're doing up here. But glad to see such a large crowd here this morning anyway. Yeah. What do you say, Ms. Richardson?
You asked for trouble.
I asked you for trouble. Not really.
Had to have a laugh at the beginning of the year.
Right. Also looking out over the crowd, I know we've got a lot of our employees here, and we'll get to that in just a moment. We also, as you noticed this morning, have an empty seat down on the end. Well, Mary, I think you moved over, hadn't you?
No, she's.
Oh, okay, it's on, there it is, okay. And that's because if any of you, I'm sure everybody knows by now, but Ms. Barnes ran for a House seat and got elected, and she was sworn in yesterday. So her last day with the commissioners was the 31st of January. I do see a couple of people, and just to briefly tell you how it works, I hope you have caught it in the news, but Ms. Barnes was a registered Republican and held a Republican seat on the board. And we have a vacancy on the board. What happens is the GOP Executive Committee makes that known, and they have taken letters of interest for that seat. And we gave it quite a long period of time to have those turned in. We had 4 people to show an interest in it, and our GOP Executive Committee, which 3 of us on this board sit on also by being elected Republicans in the county, will be meeting Thursday night to interview these 4 people. And from that interview, we hope to be able to, at the end of the meeting, select one of those, which will come back to this board as a recommendation, and this board will actually appoint the commissioner. And I hope we get that done so we make an appointment at our second meeting in January is what we anticipate. I do see two at least candidates that submitted a letter of interest. Ms. Sue Leggett. Ms. Sue, if you would identify yourself. And pleased to have you here this morning, Mr. Danny Tyson. I'm glad to see you all sitting together back there. That's excellent. Any other member that I'm missing? The other two were Mr. Johnny Barnes and then Mr. Clint Williams. If I'd made a little preparation this morning with the empty chair down there, I could have played the country song, I think by George Strait possibly, about the empty chair for you two this morning, but we'll move on from that. I believe that song was by George Strait. I'm not really sure.
You on the executive board,
Yes,
make
sir.
sure you pick a good one that are willing to work with us.
Well, Mr. Belfield, I get one vote out of 22.
I understand that, you have one vote, but you may have some influence.
Well,
All I'm interested in is somebody coming on that's gonna work with the board.
I
Well-
don't think we'll be a loser with any of those four candidates.
exactly what I was gonna say, Commissioner Outlaw. I believe we got four excellent candidates, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
two of them I don't know, two of them I do.
Okay. All right, Mr. Belfield, we will certainly try our best to do that, but I think we can't go wrong, quite frankly. I appreciate your comment.
I trust Commissioner Outlaw, he said either one
Yep.
would be good.
All right, thank you, sir. At this time, it's one of the most favorite times for this board each year is to get to honor our long-term employees with their service awards. It's great looking out there, seeing all of these this morning. The list is 34 people long that have served with the county for 20 years or more. And at this time, I'd like for us to present those awards. And of course, there's no way I can tell you how much our Board of Commissioners appreciates what our employees do for us. Our board understands, quite frankly, that we have an excellent group of employees from the top department head all the way down to the last person at the end of the line. I'd say 95% of them do an excellent job, and we certainly appreciate it, and it makes our job a lot easier up here. And a lot of people in the public think we get a ton of phone calls about what goes on in Nash County. We get a few, but we really don't get that many. And the reason we don't get many is because of the job each one of you do each and every day that you come to work for Nash County. It makes our phone call list a lot shorter, and I don't remember when I have had a phone call complaining about an employee anyway. It would be something else most of the time, and I'm sure the rest of the board would agree with that statement. But at this time, Anson, I think you were going to help us present these, and Mr. Lamb, if you could join me up front, we'll take pleasure in doing this.
He'll read the name. I will give you the packet, and then you hand the packet to the
All right.
recipient. If you want to get up here.
Why don't we all get up there?
I'll stand back, okay. Okay, we're going to start with the 20-year certificates. Vernon Battle, Sheriff's Department. Keith Corbett, Sheriff's Department. Should say William. Yeah. These two aren't here. Yeah, apparently. Eric Cuthrell, Environmental Health. Donna Easterly, Health Department. LaTanya Evans, Social Services. Okay. All right. Judy Holden, Detention Center.
Y'all know how bad it is.
Kevin Marks, Planning Department.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. For a long time, since you were with us, you were 20 years, please. Appreciate it.
Shay Neal, Social Services.
Just one inside another one.
Hands might hang up a little bit.
They need to correct us on.
They stuck the wrong, I'm sorry, that guy.
Yeah.
We'll get that corrected. We'll get it corrected. Wendy Rose, Finance. We'll get that corrected. It's this one.
Oh, okay.
It got stapled to the wrong one.
We had a malfunction.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's the right one.
No, that was the, she has the other one. We'll get it straight. We'll get it straight. We'll get it straight. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, mercy.
Scott Scroofy, Emergency Medical Services. Deborah Tyson, Sheriff's Department. Sonia Walker, Detention Center. That got them out of order. Okay, let me have that one. Okay, the next category is 25 years of service. Lee Davenport, Emergency Medical Services. Brent Fisher, Emergency Services. Brenda Godwin, Health Department. Kim Leonard, Health Department. Jamie Moss, Emergency Medical Services. Paula Person, Social Services. Got David Talbot. Yeah. David Talbot, Emergency Medical Services. Rose Taylor, Health Department. Donna Tinsley, Tax Department. Okay, our next category is
Lab says annual tax collection.
Our next category is for 30 years of service. Our first one is Kim Arnold, Social Services. She just retired. She's not proud of that bit.
Last week.
Very timely.
Okay. Carolyn Minja, Finance Department.
Morning, ma'am. Thank you for your many years of service.
Teresa Sessoms, Social Services. Paula Walker, Health Department. I see him, I didn't see Bill. I wonder if he was. Do you want to say something special about him?
This big one, this is the big one. You want to handle?
You want to handle this one, or?
I got the big one.
Yeah.
You want to say something?
40 years.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead and say it.
Okay. We have one employee, distinguished employee who has 40 years of service to Nash County. We'd like to call up at this time Mr. William W. Hill, Jr., Bill Hill, Health Department. Congratulations.
One more moment, on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, Bill, I called your, turn around, I called your significant other, know well, him last week, and asked where y'all like to go out and eat at, and the Board of Commissioners wanted to get a gift certificate for you. And it wasn't a big surprise to me, but she said the only place you could ever carry was the Subway. You're welcome to say a few words if you like, sir.
Well, the only thing I would like to say is it's been a real honor. It's been an opportunity. And I don't think I could have worked with a more distinguished, more professional group of people from the top down. I mean, I really mean that. The employees, the department heads, our elected officials, our county manager, all the folks involved in this county, and first and foremost, the citizens we serve have just been outstanding. I don't think there's another county in North Carolina that could equal what we have here in Nash County, and I mean that. I really do.
Almost sounds like a retirement speech, we hope.
Well,
Just a 40-year service speech.
maybe this is what this is all about.
You don't mind.
Just read years of service and those that weren't here.
We do have several employees who were unable to be with us today who would receive service awards, so we just want to share those with you at this time. Catherine Blunt, Social Services, with 20 years. Sabrina Cooper with the Detention Center, 20 years. Beverly Ann Hale, Health Department, 20 years. Milton Jones, Detention Center, 20 years. Romac Lankos with the Sheriff's Department, 20 years. Angel Tisdale with Social Services, 20 years. Carol Cook with Social Services, 25 years. And Edward Long with Soil and Water, 25 years. So we want to wish them well as well.
Fixing to empty the chamber.
Well, I was going to ask if any other commissioner wanted to make a comment, but I think our audit's cleared out very quickly. Anything anyone would like to say? Any other board member? All right. Mr. Barnes, Johnny, I also would like to introduce Johnny Barnes, who came in just now. A little earlier, Johnny, I introduced two of our other people that had shown interest in the vacant seat down on the end. And just wanted to recognize you that you had come in. Appreciate you being here this morning. That moves us on to item number 7, which is our year-end physical audit. And you going to start this off for me?
I will.
Don, I appreciate it.
What we have, Mr. Stuart Hill, CPA, is an audit supervisor with Thompson Price, Scott, Adams, and he'll present the highlights of the fiscal year 17-18 annual audit.
All right.
This is the highlight.
This is what we got done.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Donna, and thank you, Board. First of all, I want to say that we appreciate the opportunity to do the June 30, 2018 audit report for Nash County. We appreciate the opportunity for doing that. We appreciate your staff. I want to thank them because you have a magnificent staff. Donna, Melanie, and several others from all the various departments were extremely helpful in being available and providing information for us, which is no surprise. They did a great job the previous year, so we expected the same this year, and they delivered greatly. So we want to thank them. We can't thank them enough. So having said that, I think you do have a copy of the full audit. We're going to go with the presentation summary that's in the black binder. It's a little more condensed, and it, similar to what we did last year, we have accumulated some data and numbers that are key items from the audit report and created graphs that, as they say, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So sometimes that that helps. And we have trends for like a 5-year period, so you can see how you're flowing. First of all, in the presentation summary, if you flip over to page 1, there's a letter there. I'm not going to read the letter. You can read it at your convenience, but basically this is just required information that we are to provide to the governing body, which is you guys. And it basically just outlines the fact that you've got a clean audit at this point. If there was any problems, it would be indicated in here, but there's no findings. Your accounting procedures are adequate and proper, and so your financial records materially reflect the financial position of Nash County as of June 30, 2018. So that's good. This has been submitted to the LGC and approved at this point. So it has been for a little while, but at any rate, and in that letter, we would also indicate any problems or issues we had with your staff for getting information or stuff. And obviously, I already said that we didn't have any problems. So this all is good. It's just indicating good things from Nash County. So feel free to read through it. That's what you're going to find in there. So with that, if you turn over to page 4 and 5. There's several items data-wise that, as I indicated, that spread for a 5-year period from 2014 through 2018. I'm not going to read through these numbers per se, all of them, because these are this is the information that is used to create the graphs that start on page 6. So if you're wondering what the colors and the bars and the lines, what numbers do those represent, that would be on pages 3 and 4, or excuse me, 4 and 5. So if you will, if we'll go ahead and start on page 6 with the first graph at the top. This represents your general fund balance, and we have 3 different categories. We have the total fund balance, which is basically the excess of assets over liabilities. We have the available fund balance, which basically takes the total fund balance and deducts some things that are restricted by state statute. So that's somewhat out of your control. Those items have to be restricted. And then when you go to the third, which are the green bars, which is your unassigned fund balance, the unassigned fund balance is the green bars, and that basically takes the available fund balance and takes away what you guys have already committed or assigned to certain projects. So that leaves the remaining unassigned fund balance for the general fund. And those numbers, basically, the total fund balance ranged from $40 million in 2014 to $42.6 million in 2018. Your available balance ranged from $32.5 million in 14 to $36.5 million in 2018, and your unassigned fund balance range from $21 million in 2014 to $28 million in 2018. On the second chart, this represents your unassigned fund balance as a percentage of your general fund expenditures. And the blue line represents the available, which you can see it's gone from 37.87% in 14 to 41.35% in 2018. The unassigned portion has gone from 24.96% in 14 to 32.03 in 18. There's a little dip from 17 to 18, and that's basically your unassigned fund balance up at the top, if you see, dropped just slightly from 2017 to 2018. Your expenditures also dropped, but the unassigned fund balance as a percentage dropped a little more than the expenditures dropped during that time period. So that creates that slight dip, but still in good shape, On page 7, we're looking at your tax collections on the top chart there. And you can see that the blue line represents Nash County. It's gone from 97.73% collection rate in 2014 up to 98.73% in 2018. The red line represents other similar population size counties in the state, so that you can see that you're trailing a higher than the state average for counties of a similar size. The information for 2018 was not yet available for the other counties at the time that we created the reports here. So the bottom chart down there shows the one on the left with the red bars. It shows your property values, and then on the right side, it reflects the levy amounts. And of course, those are going to flow together. You know, when you have increases in one, you're going to have increases in the other, or decreases in one. So that's why they kind of look very similar because of that fact. So, okay. Then on page 8, we're breaking down your general fund revenues by different categories, just so you can see where your revenues are coming in from. You can see that your largest, at 55.32%, is your ad valorem taxes. Your second largest is your intergovernmental revenues, which are things like the sales tax distributions from the state and various other taxes and items. And then the third largest is just other taxes and licenses that are generated in the county. And then on page 9, the last chart, this is a similar chart as to the revenues, only this one is for the expenditures. So we're looking at the categories in which your expenditures lie. So you can see that your largest percentage at 27.26% is your education, followed by human services, and third, public safety. So those are the categories of your revenues, expenditures. Your tax collections are good. Your fund balances are solid. And one other thing that we want to point out for this year, this is a year that we have a little different item than we would have, you know, in typical years. If you look at the bottom of page 5, and we look at the government-wide net position, the last 2 rows of data on that page. The state has decided this year, if you look at the second line up, the note for 2018, it talks about GASB 75, that's Governmental Accounting Standards Boards. The state has implemented that regulation, which means that on your full accrual statements, on your budget reports, you budget by what we've already been through and talked about the fund balances that we've looked at on the charts and everything. There's what we call a conversion that is done to convert all of that to a full accrual. And the state has implicated or has required this year that you implement GASB 75, which is other post-employment benefits, which is retiree health insurance is what that's about. And they have had actuaries go out and do their analysis and reviews and issue statements and reports that says what would the liability be based on their best guess of what the investment returns are going to be and the life expectancies of all the employees would be. What would the liability of the county be if they had to report it today? And so this actuarial educated guesses, whatever you want to call it, to determine what that is. And every county, every town, every governmental unit in the state that has retiree health insurance has had to put what we use as a restatement to put in that liability in your full accrual. That's a large number. That's $43.8 million of liability that they determine that to be. So that's huge, and it's huge for every county in the state, every town in the state, and again, all the governmental units. So just wanted you to be aware of that. That is reflected in the audit report as well. It doesn't impact your budget process, but it is on your financial statements, and we certainly want you to be aware that it's there, and that's what that's all about. And you know, that's a big number. If you have questions about it now or later, feel free to give us a call. Donna has our contact information. She can explain it better than I can, so you might not need me. But at any rate, you may all can explain it better than I can, because it is kind of a unique thing there. But we just want to make sure you were all aware of that. So with that, any questions I'll be glad to take, and certainly, again, I want to thank you guys for allowing us to do your audit again for 2018, and Donna and her staff, we always appreciate them, so we thank them as well.
Any questions from board members at this time? Mr. Lamb?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you and Donna for this audit, and I have one question. And this may be something that will be made more aware in next year's audit, but as a result of what's occurred in Buncombe County, did y'all do any additional checks or procedures to look for things that got past their auditors for all those years?
You know, I mean, we try to upgrade our, we test more transactions, more programs, more, each year, just like with all the regulations create extra things everybody has to do. And those things come down to pike, and, we take more samples, look at more programs, and so those things are just kind of, we have to do that every year just about. So.
And the Register of Deeds situation in Wake County, that you checked into things like, to make sure everything was...
Yeah, we take a look at...
I just want the board to know that, that we're being, we're operating correctly. And,
yes, sir. I mean, again, there's no audit can be absolute, things can be there that's not detected because we're taking samples. We can't look at every transaction, so there's always a chance that there's things that could get by. So, but based on the samples and transactions that we looked at, and we look at most all of your departments in some way or another, and, we found things to be fine here. So.
Good. Great. Thank you.
Couple of things, if I could. As you said, very large number in those last two notes, $43 million. In the entities that your firm has done, the counties, did that percentage of something else look consistent? Do we look in line? We look better? We all know this number's laying out there. It's a number we should be more concerned about than we are, but every governmental agency has that number laying there.
These kind of numbers weren't not uncommon. There won't be everybody doesn't get the exact same percentage because they base it on the age and that kind of thing of their particular employers. Yes, sir, or employees.
Mm-hmm.
So they wouldn't be necessarily the exact same percentage, but they all are large numbers, and these numbers are not uncommon for this size of a payroll, basically.
And I know we've made some changes in benefits throughout the state, as well as at the state, when we all started paying a little bit more attention to this number.
Right.
Do you see what we've done? I'm just asking you for an off-the-cuff answer. Have we done enough yet to keep this number from continuing to grow? Or just
Well,
thought on that?
Well, I do know that y'all have done some things, and as have some other counties and towns, to recognize that this is a startling numbers.
Right.
So they have made some revisions in the benefits that they're going to provide and that sort of thing. And so, and I know you guys have done some things as well to say, with the actuarial stuff, I'm going to be quite honest with you, I'm not an actuary, so I don't know that I can say that, because that's foreign language to me almost. I mean, I understand the concept of what they're doing, but to determine what's enough, it's kind of like when you're young. For my sake, I'm getting old. So when we were younger and started having children, the insurance agent would always come and say, "Do you know how much it's going to cost you for college for that kid?" And it had some big number of insurance I needed, because they wanted to sell insurance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they got those numbers either, but nonetheless, I know there is a rhyme or reason to it. I'm not discounting it, but.
It was probably an unfair question anyway. I just kind of want to know how you felt about it. The last question, and it may be more for Donna or Mr. Lamb, was there a significant event we look at our 5 years we're looking at here, and our unassigned fund balance has grown each year, and then this year it's come down a little bit, not much, the unassigned fund balance. What significant event did the board do that may have triggered that?
I don't know if this is on. We had more commitments. What the unassigned doesn't show, I mean, what that doesn't include are the commitments that the board made. So we had, we did some commitment in there for education, for our school system, for the early, for the Northern Nash Elementary School. We
Right.
did that. We had
And the
some
early
other
college.
debt commitments in there as well.
It's in there.
And assignments. So where we have pulled money out of unassigned, the board has taken action and made commitments and assignments.
I realize that's what changes that number. I was just trying to get in my mind what it was we had done, so we would be aware that we were trending in that direction now, rather than what we had done the last few years.
Yeah,
Mr.
and
Lamb, you may want to add to that answer.
Yeah, I will. In June, y'all, before the 30th, y'all did set aside $750,000 for the Northern Nash School. At that time, you'd already set aside $750,000 for the early college that
Right.
as of
We did.
the 30th had not been expended. 30th of June of last year had not been expended. And other funds, such as the senior center that hadn't been expended, would be included. So if you look at the available fund balance, the middle column, the third column, the third line, that's with those funds. Yeah.
Well, I think we did exactly what intent was. Once you look at it like this, we had a little bit of questioning of the board of the continual growing of the fund balance from the two entities maybe that you just mentioned, public education as well as community college. So maybe it looks like we've done the right moves to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish, is not to continue to, it's a bad thing to say, but to grow that unassigned fund balance when we had needs. We needed to be taking care of the needs as long as we kept the comfortable levels that we have kept here. Any other questions? Mr. Belfield?
I just want to follow up on the manager. He mentioned a couple of counties. How did that happen over a period of time that it did without the auditors catching it sooner than they did? It was over a period of years.
Yeah, I can't speak for the other auditors.
Well, I understand that. I
but-
just want your opinion of,
Absolutely.
in general.
Right. Well, there are a lot of departments in any county and a lot of transactions, and, as I say, we can't look at every transaction. And to be honest with you, we don't necessarily get to every single department every year. But over a period of years, we try to rotate, and I'm not saying would do any better than the other guys did, but over a period of years, we're going to get to your department. It won't, some of the departments, the larger ones, we test every year. And then some of the smaller departments.
Why not do them all each year in your audit?
Well,
Seem like it would be helpful to the people that may be not doing it right.
right.
Well, it's tied to the amount we're paying them to do it, Mr.
Well,
Belfield,
then
understand?
that rather than have such a situation like they had in Buncombe County and Wake, it probably pay you to pay a little more and get it done.
I understand you.
Because there are so many, with technology like it is now, there are so many ways that people can do things, get by for a period of time and before they're caught.
Well, my thought on what you said is, if we keep, well, I'm gonna try to be kind with this, is if we keep questioning that kind of thing, we may tend to have our own employees think we got issues, when I know none of us
No.
think we got issues.
Because every year, the auditor asked us.
Right.
If we have any issues.
That's right.
And they know that we don't.
Right.
So, I was just saying that it's a good thing to do.
Understood.
And so it means each year, every department in good standing.
Mr. Lamb?
Well, I believe he looks at every department, but he samples receipts and expenditures. He doesn't go through every single expenditure. You know, somebody committing fraud is thinking about how can I conceal it. So it's not always the easiest thing to do, but I do know that Ms. Wood has, as a result of some of those scandals, and we have implemented certain procedures that will protect us from falling into those same traps. I would say that. I do have one other question, if he's finished.
No, I was just gonna say that it keeps things honest when they know you're looking at it.
If I can, I'm sorry, if I could add,
Sampling.
if I can add one thing that we did, that the auditors did put in place, that we had to be very specific on this year. Any department that collects cash, the finance department, well, I had to make sure that I did an internal control audit, and that was provided to our auditors. So they were checking transactions, but they were also following up to make sure I was doing the internal control checks and testing as well. And I had to submit that. And not to say that that wasn't required in the past, but the auditors specifically asked for that, to see that we were doing our internal control checks for those departments.
And one other thing that came out of the Buncombe County situation is occasionally we'd have some kind of event, and we would purchase gift cards, like maybe 5, and present them at that event. Well, in Buncombe County, they were buying thousands and thousands and thousands, $40-some thousand worth of gift cards, and instead of distributing them to employees for certain events, they were using them themselves. And so we have restricted the purchase of any gift cards here in the county.
You have restricted the.
We can't do them. You
Right.
can't buy them. Even if it's for a gift, for someone retiring or whatever. Is
Mr.
that
Hill, the
correct?
one you got this morning was purchased by the Board of Commissioners,
Yeah,
not the
that was
county, sir.
separate. Yeah. I have one other question, if.
Yes, sir.
On the retirement benefits, the $43 million, do you know if that includes people who are still working for us that have not vested yet? Or is it just people that have actually vested, so if they retired right now, they would get it, or?
Right. The action that the board took, there were 2 actions that the Board of Commissioners took on behalf of the post-employee health benefits. In 2007, post-65 retirees no longer received benefits. In 2012, effective July 1, 2012, anyone who was hired after that date would not receive health benefits, pre-65 health benefits. And so the way that the actuary report works, we report anyone who was hired prior to 2012, and all of those employees are considered in that calculation. So it's not just retirees, but it's active employees who fall into the category who we would have to pay the health benefit for.
So should that number be increasing in future years or decreasing?
It should actually be decreasing, but it would be based on, too, what we pay for post-65 health benefits. So
Okay.
if insurance costs weren't increasing, that
Right,
number
it's
would
a set-off,
definitely
yeah,
decrease.
yeah. Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Sir, we appreciate your time being here, and
Thank you,
appreciate
sir.
you performing our audit again, and more so, we appreciate on your behalf as well as the staff, the great report.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is something we've all been waiting for a long, long time. Item 8 is recommendation for award of contract 1 and 2 for the Northern Nash Water System Project. And I'll ask Mike Phillips to come forward and do that. And Mike, while you're coming up, I also let the 2 mayors of the town that have helped us so much with this project do to come this morning if they were free, and I'm glad to see both of them here. Lavelle, if you would stand up, and Tony Bennett, one of his commissioners as well, and Kirby Brown from Dorchester, who have played a large part in this, and we kept telling you it was going to happen. And I know it's been a long time coming, but today we are going to award these contracts and hopefully see work going on very soon. And on behalf of the board, we greatly appreciate the continued support financially and every other way to help us get this started. And we really look forward to getting it done. There's a lot of needs in y'all's towns, I know, for this water, public water system. But thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for what y'all have done.
Good morning.
All right.
I just want to say Brian Johnson's here with me as well, from the Wooten Company. He's our design engineer on the project. And as you know, we've been working on the design of Northern Nash Water System for the last couple of years. And last month, we put the system out to bid for construction. There were 2 contracts. One was for the water lines and meter vault, and one for the 250,000-gallon elevated water storage tank. And on December 20th, we received 3 bids for each contract. The lowest bidder for contract 1, which was the water lines, was ELG Incorporated out of Jacksonville, North Carolina, and their bid was $5,746,250. Lowest bidder for contract 2, which was the elevated storage tank, was McGuire Iron Incorporated out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and their bid was $1,039,000. If we award these contracts today, the Wooten Company will then send the bid information to the Division of Water Infrastructure for final approval. At this time, staff is recommending the award of both Contract 1 to ELG Incorporated and Contract 2 to McGuire Iron Incorporated.
Any questions on these bids from commissioners? Anything you would like to add, Chris?
It's been a long time coming, and I know everybody's excited for this day and looking forward to some dust going in Nash County.
Great. No questions? My instructions are to call for a motion to approve or deny this request. And if
For
it,
approval, Mr. Chairman.
have a motion by Commissioner Outlaw to approve, is there a second to that motion? Second by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? I will tell you before we vote, I think, as the Wooten Company would testify, as well as Mike, we were very lucky on that day. Contractors that do utility work are very busy right now. And if you look at the tabulation sheet, we had an extremely wide spread between, on the water contract, between the first bidder and the second and the third bidder. It would have made it very difficult for us to award it. We are right on our budget, as with the 2 low bids we got. I'm not concerned, as well as the Wooten Company, about the low bid that we have, because it much more in line with the estimate that the Wooten Company prepared. The Wooten Company has utilized this contractor. It will be a new contractor for us. Actually, both of them will be. But they have utilized them many times in the past, with excellent results, I understand. So I don't have any hesitation at all in what we're doing. Mr. Plant? All right, is the resolution need to be passed before or after?
It's,
Explain to Donna what you just told me.
the motion was to award the contract, but there's also a resolution in the agenda that's not part of it's not on here. Is that the same thing? The resolution and the award, is that the same thing, or is that 2 different?
They're 2 different things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you take care of the.
We've not approved any contracts, you're just approving the award.
Right,
Contracts are later.
right. But then they have to pass the resolution. The resolution will cover it.
Before, does it make any difference which one you do first?
Well, let me catch up, Mr. Belfield. They've kind of confused me up here. So the resolution comes when we award the contract, Vince?
No.
Or did it come now?
You approved this resolution today.
Okay, so that's a second action I'm going to take.
That is the action that's taken today.
Yeah,
That's
the only action.
Well, I call
just
for
one thing.
a motion to approve or deny the request.
When you approve it, you are adopting this resolution.
Okay, all right.
I think you want to specifically say, though, you're passing the resolution. That should be in the minutes.
All right, Mr. Outlaw, you're fine with adding, and it's my fault I didn't state it that way.
Where is the resolution?
It's on page 48.
Okay, so the resolution is prior to the actual information that was provided on the contract. Yes, sir, I'm fine with that.
Mr. Belfield, you fine with it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
All right. I have a motion, I have a second. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for your very long, hard work on this, and certainly thank the two towns, and look forward to working together with y'all and bringing all this to fruition. Moving on to item number 9.
Robert,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Wells needs a break.
Prior to moving on to item number 9, I'm going to call for a 5-minute recess at the request of one of the commissioners, and we'll be right back with you. All the Board of Commissioners meeting back together at this time, and we are now on item number 9, which is the quasi-judicial hearing for considering revising a CU permit to accommodate an expansion on North NC Highway 58. Nancy, if you would make that presentation for us, then we'll have the public hearing.
Let me be sure I don't take that with me when I go. Thank you. This morning, we have scheduled a public hearing to consider revising conditional use permit 160302, which is located at 4671, excuse me, North NC 58 here in Nashville, and also rezoning a piece of property that is adjacent to it. Always look at the wrong side. Let's see, let's find an aerial for you. Here's an aerial of the property. This is the photo's about almost 2 years old. And so there is actually, on the property there, this photo shows 2 existing warehouse buildings. Actually, there's a third one on the property now, which was constructed after the photo was taken. What we have, well, let me get my papers in order. What we have this morning is a conditional use rezoning request submitted by James Strickland on behalf of the owners of the existing self-storage warehouse facility out on 58 North, and also the owner of the immediately adjacent property to the south, which is this property, in order to change the approved project for the mini storage on the property as follows. And there are 2 things that we're trying to accomplish, that the applicants are trying to accomplish. One is to revise the current site plan to expand the area that's shown, the fenced and gravelled area, in order to accommodate another building. Let's see. This is the current approved site plan, and you can see it shows 3 buildings in construction. What they'd like to do is to revise that site plan in order to add a 4th building, which is shown here. And also, in doing that, they trigger a requirement to expand on this side of the property as an existing conservation easement, low-maintenance conservation easement that's related to their stormwater requirements. And adding that additional building will trigger some additional conservation easement requirement. So it would not only be the addition of that building and the associated gravel around it, but also some conservation easement. The second part of the request is that by extending involves rezoning some additional property. And basically what happens is when they expand this project to add the additional building in this southerly direction, then that whole area of activity for the mini storage project gets closer to the property line. Under the current site plan, they have enough distance between the operations and the property line, not to have to screen this property line on this side because they're more than 100 feet from the property line. So the second part of the request is to rezone an additional strip, which you can see right along the property line here, to rezone that additional strip in order to maintain a 100-foot separation. And then if that's successful, then before they construct the building, they would add that additional strip of property to the tract that has the mini storage on it by a subdivision map, or a subdivision plat. They'd actually make that tract larger in order to align and be able to maintain that separation distance. Okay, so the two things that they're trying to accomplish here then, this is what the rezoning area looks like. It's a very narrow strip. It's about 1.011 acres, and it's a narrow strip that runs along that southern property line, which is here. Okay. So that's a lot to kind of process but at one time. But those are the two things that applicants are trying to accomplish or are requesting consideration for. Because this is a conditional use and it expands the zoning, it's a little more complicated than what we sometimes get with a change in a conditional use permit, which typically just requires the change to the site plan itself. But because we have an expansion on the zoning this morning, it's a little bit more. Okay? So the proposed site plan adds 1.011 acres from the adjoining tract to the project area, which benefits the stormwater management and it by increasing the amount of area on the tract. And it also allows the mini storage to remain at least 100 feet from that boundary in order to not have to install those screening requirements according to the incompatible land use requirements. If the commissioners choose to approve the site plan revision, which is the expansion to include the fourth building. Oh, I'm sorry, I have one more thing. If the commissioners choose to approve the site plan revision, which would add that fourth building and a section of the conservation easement, then, that didn't do right. Then, as I said, that plat would be recorded in order to align the property lines. It is noted that the proposed site plan can be approved without rezoning the additional land to GCCU because all of the mini storage activities still occur within the current GCCU boundary, but the rezoning request would align those zoning boundary with the proposed property line boundary. Okay. The site is, the submitted site plan does show that fenced gravelled area containing those four 35 by 140-foot self-storage buildings and the parking areas to satisfy that requirement. I will note that there is a slight change from, almost can't see it, but I did want you to note there's a slight change in the site plan from the one that was mailed in your package last week. And it's a little bit tough to see. See if I can even get it on here. Not sure, I'll put it that way. And right here at the front, there is a small construction building that's existing on the site, and we want to put that on the approved site plan. It's a small storage shed for operations that the owners use for operational purposes at the mini storage site, but it's not shown on the site plan that was sent out to you last week, so we wanted to be sure that you were aware of that. In terms of the, let's see, the land development plan shows all of the area that's involved in the suburban growth. And so it is an extension of the existing zoning, GCCU zoning, and an extension of the existing self-storage warehouse facility. We have some additional details in your package information, but let me just go to, so if you have any questions about the specifics in terms of floodplain or how the stormwater is impacted or anything, I'll be glad to answer those questions as they come up. In terms of consistency with the Nash County Land Development Plan, the plan designates a subject tract, as we just mentioned, as suburban growth area. Further recommends the establishment of very limited commercial land uses in the suburban growth areas when you have sites meeting certain locational criteria. And those include frontage and access to major site or highway, major state highway or secondary road, locations at major intersections, proximity to similar land uses, spatial separation from non-compatible land uses like existing residential development. When approving the commercial zoning in 2016 for the original site, the original zoning permit, the Board of Commissioners found that request was consistent with the LDP for reasons that are listed in your report. And so the proposed expansion may also be considered consistent with the recommendations of the LDP for those same reasons. In terms of spot zoning, the amendment request is not considered spot zoning because it is an expansion of the already existing and immediately adjacent GCCU commercial conditional use zoning district and the previously established approval of the conditional use rezoning request 160302 in 2016. The TRC reviewed this request on November 30th and recommended adoption of Consistency Statement A and approval of the rezoning of additional property, as well as the proposed changes to the site plan. And the Planning Board considered this at their December 17th meeting, also voted unanimously to recommend approval of the rezoning request and the site plan amendments both, subject to the conditions noted in the suggested motion for approval below in your staff report. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Any board member have a question? Ms. Dixon, at this time.
And this is a quasi-judicial hearing.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Dixon.
Yes, sir.
At this time, I call for a motion to go into a public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw,
Second.
second by Commissioner Richardson. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in a quasi-judicial public hearing, and if you're here to speak on behalf of this request or against this request, I would need to have you each one sworn in, and I'd like to do it all at the same time if we could. So if you intend to speak on this during this public hearing, if you would come forward at this time, I would ask the attorney to swear you in. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this item?
The applicants are here, but they're
Okay.
going to come up if needed.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right, seeing no one at this time, no one wishes to speak, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time then.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Bellfield, second by Commissioner Wells. Is there any questions on that motion? Prior to taking a vote, am I okay where I'm headed?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Public hearing is now closed. I entertain a motion first to, and it appears like we'll do this in one motion, approve the rezoning request as well as the site plan. Of course, I realize I got to do it in two steps, but we take care of both items at one time, which is what the planning board did.
There are actually three motions. There's a consistency statement.
Right.
Then you do the map amendment, and then the permit itself that has the conditions in it.
Okay, so the map amendment is a separate item.
Yes.
Okay, all right. At this time, I'd entertain a motion from a board member to approve one of the consistency statements shown in the agenda.
I move, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the consistency statement as stated.
Is that A, Mr. Bellfield?
Statement A.
Okay, all right. Have a motion to approve consistency statement A. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Ms. Richardson. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? And at this time, I'd entertain a motion, Ms. Nixon, to approve or deny the site plan changes.
Zoning map first.
Zoning map first, okay. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve or deny the zoning request.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a motion for approval
Of the zoning request,
of zone request,
all right.
Second.
And there's,
statement A.
okay, I have a motion to approve the zoning request by Ms. Richardson, a second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? And then on the site plan changes, we have a few stipulations or additions that came to us from the planning board. Is there a motion to approve the site plan as submitted with the changes stated?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richardson. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well. Take care of that one?
I think it does.
All right. To the owner, we appreciate you being here this morning. Appreciate you extending your facility in Nash County. I know it takes a little bit to get through it, but you're free to go build your buildings now, sir. All right, next item is item number 10, which is a 6-month permit extension for 2 solar farms on Taylor Ginn Road at the intersection of Taylor Ginn Road, or one on Taylor Ginn and one on Simmons Road, also in Ms. Richardson's district, I think. Ms. Nixon, you present that?
I do. This is, as the chairman stated, a request for some extensions on getting the permits and beginning construction on 2 5-megawatt solar farm projects that are handled by Sunlight Partners. Yeah. Here's a map of where the 2 locations are. I'll think better with me. This is up by Castelia at Simmons Road, this location, and the second location is here off of Taylor's Ginn Road, and Castelia is right up here. So these 2 are both each seeking a 6-month extension per the UDO. Both facilities were originally approved in August of 2015 with 2-year vested rights, and you may recall from previous extension requests that at the end of that 2-year vested right, the commissioners have the option of continuing to extend those permits in 6-month increments. We have had a number of solar facility requests come in for extensions, sometimes repeated extensions, as is the case with these 2, and the documentation that they're required to provide is a description of why why the delays have been necessary, and in the case if they're outside of the applicant's control, we like to know that we just want to know that the applicants are trying to move forward with the projects and that the projects are still viable. So in your packet, you'll see copies of letters from Sunlight Partners, which is the managing entity for the projects, and they indicate in both cases that the delays have been part of a lengthy queue process with Duke Energy. I would note that in the information, we have, let's see, I believe it's Tate Solar that has been released by Duke Energy, and so we would expect that one to obtain construction permits first, and then Higgins Solar would be after that, would be following that. Both the documentation is provided, and I have if you want to see the layouts of those solar facilities that are approved, if you have questions about that, we'll be glad to take a look at those as well. So these would both be extended, if approved, through August 3rd of 2019, if those were approved. And the indication is that the Tate Solar permit would definitely be approved, would be under construction by then, or the permits would be obtained. And they're hopeful that Higgins Solar would be at that time as well, but certainly they expect both of them in 2019. And with that, both projects are still intended to be built, and so no public hearing is required for the actions, and we just request that the permit extensions be approved for Tate Solar, conditional use permit 150702, and Higgins Solar, which is conditional use permit 150703.
All right, any questions from board members? Seeing none, I call for a motion to approve or deny the request.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a motion that we approve both requests.
All right, have a motion by Ms. Richardson. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Nixon.
Thank you.
Now, on item number 11, which is also Ms. Nixon, declaration of restricted covenants.
We are, Nash County, as you know, is involved with the Hurricane Matthew Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, in which we will acquire 3 single-family residential properties in the county as part of that program. And these are properties that were flooded in Hurricane Matthew and were approved by the State Hazard Mitigation Program for acquisition. And we are getting ready to close on our first house of those 3. And so one of the things that's required, you may remember from the Hurricane Floyd process, is that when the county acquires properties, one of the requirements is that the property that's acquired with those federal funds has to be kept in perpetuity with conservation easements, so that it can be used basically to store floodwaters and without destroying any future buildings or future facilities on those sites. And so as a mechanism for doing that, each property deed is required to have a series of restrictive covenants. And so we have, this morning, we're requesting approval for the declaration of those covenants that will be recorded at Nash County Registry and then referred to in each one of the deeds as we acquire properties. One thing that I would note is that I believe since we sent your notice out, the attorney and I have had a conversation about number 7, which regards conveyance. Everybody got these in their package, right? You don't want me to read them, correct?
Nope.
Number 7, conveyance, and I believe that the version that you received has a phrase at the end of that section that regards getting prior approval from emergency management prior to executing a lease on properties. And that language for requiring that pre-approval from DEM is actually not in the Hurricane Matthew requirements, and so we have removed it. We would converse and consult with emergency management to be sure that we weren't violating anything, but it does not require the written approval, so we've removed that.
Is that, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Mr.
Is that right?
beginning with however?
So it would end at the word agriculture. We would keep, however, the county may lease the real estate or any portion thereof to a private individual or entity for purposes compatible with the uses described in paragraph 1 above, including agriculture, and end the statement there.
Thank you.
And the other thing that we're requesting in this action today, in addition to approval of this declaration of covenants and restrictions, is just to authorize or to add the planning director to the county manager's ability, authorization to execute documents related to those transactions, just related to administering the HMGP acquisition program, so that the documents that are required to do those transactions and administer the program could be signed by the county manager or the planning director.
Right. Anything else?
That's all.
Question from board members on this request?
Just a question regarding the provisions on the agreement. It says on October the 1st, county will report NCDM certifying that property continues to be maintained consistent with provisions of this agreement. What's the trigger to ensure that that happens?
We would just put it on a repetitive calendar in the office for
You've got some
reporting.
calendar where you,
For reporting, that's all.
what would be the penalty for not reporting it?
I think they just call us and ask us for a report
Okay.
when they need it. I believe that that probably stems from a requirement that the state has from FEMA to do something annually, so they ask it from us a couple of months ahead of time.
Any other questions? Nancy, how do these properties get maintained far as appearance-wise? I know two of them are in Nashville, I think.
We would, in this case, at the time of closing, when we close on the properties that are in the town of Nashville, we would, if not immediately, then very shortly thereafter, transfer those properties to the town of Nashville for maintenance. And then they would maintain them like other town-owned properties. Historically, in Nash County, what we have done is lease the properties to adjacent property owners
Right.
who have basically used them as an extended backyard and maintained them along with those properties.
The third one, is it in the town of Red Oak,
No, it is actually in Nash County's
James
jurisdiction.
County? So what
And-
will we do there?
Well, I think that the
It's a pretty
plan where,
predominant site, you know, that a lot of people go by, many people go by every day.
it is.
So we gonna have some maintenance responsibilities to keep it looking decent, I guess?
We will. I think that my thought on that, and I have okayed it with the state, is that we do a little bit more than we require in the, either in the clearance part. The clearance part usually involves reseeding and that, and I think that we might look at planting some trees on there with the ultimate goal that that would go back to forest and not involve a long-term maintenance for us, but that we would have to plant some additional trees on the property in order to be able to do that. And we should have some funds in the program budget to be able to accomplish that as part of the program.
Do we have any properties now left from previous buyouts that we actually have to cut grass, et cetera, on from time to time?
I believe that everything we have has a lease on it.
Okay, all right, that's fortunate to be able to do that. Mr. Lamb?
So the third property that he just mentioned, it can be leased or conveyed to a nonprofit, but it can't be conveyed to adjacent property owners.
Correct.
For conservation purposes. Okay.
Correct. Typically, it would be, for a nonprofit, it would typically be a conservancy agency, not just a general nonprofit, but somebody that does that conservation as a mission.
But you could lease it to an adjacent property.
Yes. I think we had a question not long ago from a property owner that had cut a piece of property out for a family member and built a house on. The house subsequently got flooded during Hurricane Floyd, and the original property owner was trying to see if if there was a mechanism for getting that piece back into the farm, since agriculture is an allowed use, and there was not a way to do that once it had been purchased with these funds.
Well, you're restricted as to the use of it if you're using FEMA funds.
Correct.
Yeah. So, if you're leasing it, they need to understand what they can do and not do with it.
In the lease, those kind of conditions are contained in the lease for the adjacent, or the property owners that are leasing the sites. Typically, they use them for a garden space or something like that.
Any other questions? If not, I call for a motion to approve or deny this request.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Bellfield. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nixon. Item 12 is the engineering service and scope agreement for the Middlesex Corporate Park infrastructure. I'll call on Mike Phillips to present that at this time. Morning, sir, once again.
Morning again. So in October, county staff performed a request for qualifications for professional services for the Middlesex Corporate Center infrastructure improvements. These improvements will include 3,000 linear feet of roadway, 3,000 linear feet of 8-inch water main, 3,500 linear feet of 12-inch water main, and 3,050 linear feet of sewer, and a 250,000-gallon elevated water storage tank. On October 12th, the committee received 4 proposals and scored them on several criteria. Based on this process, the committee has selected the Wooten Company. County staff has since been negotiating a contract agreement with the Wooten Company to provide these professional services, including engineering design, bidding, construction administration, geotechnical services, and easement and survey mapping. In the table provided, you can see what the grant allowed as well as the contract prices that staff has negotiated. And the total fee for these services will be $215,100. At this time, staff is recommending to approve the proposal and authorize the county manager to execute this design contract.
Any questions, Mr. Phillips, on this item?
Is there any allowance to use the balance of the grant money for other purposes at the park?
Well, I don't want to say, I mean, we've still got some construction observation that we have to do that will have to be paid out of the grant. But we're going to try to do as much of that with, county staff and possibly a subcontractor as possible.
Well, it looks like there's pretty considerable sum.
Mr. Outlaw, what that item is in item 1, that grant allowance, is in any grant, the grantee generally gives you a range of an allowance of what you can use from engineering fees. I purposely asked this to be put on this graph to show that the Wooten Company had given us a good price to do this work. They, we could have awarded it up to the $453,000. But what I want to make sure we understand as a board is the construction observation we're not awarding at this time. We are still looking into, as the county staff is looking into, as we fill our engineering slot, et cetera, a possible doing that a different way. We don't know that yet.
So we're not looking at returning a sum of the grant money?
Well, no, we're not looking at that. We intend to spend all the grant money we can, and really, okay, that's just a range of what could be used for it. The Wooten Company's first proposal was the second column, and then the last column is what the staff and the Wooten Company have come to agreement on as far as what's going to be awarded this morning. But the staff will be back at a later time to award that item 4, which is construction observation. Any other questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve this request so we can get this project moving.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve this request.
Second.
I kind of thought you would, Mr. Combs. I have a motion by Commissioner Combs, a second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. And thank you, Mike and Wooten Company, for your work on this, and look forward to working with you again. We got it ready to bid next week? I bet not. But we are on a pretty short timeline, because we hope in a little while, or certainly within the next month or two, we'll have a client for that Shell building out there. We'll get another report a little bit later on in closed session. And of course, when we do that, we'll really be under the gun to get these utilities in place. But thank everybody that's worked on that. That was item number 12. We'll move, Ms. Wood, now to item number 13, which is budget amendments.
Okay. The following budget amendments are being presented for the board's consideration for fiscal year 18-19. The first item is with Parks and Recreation Department. This budget amendment makes funds available that have already been collected in sponsorship revenue for the winter sports, which include indoor soccer and basketball, $6,601. No county dollars are requested. Next item is for insurance proceeds. It makes funding available from insurance proceeds received for claims for vehicle repairs. is $27,861. No county dollars are requested. Next item is Department of Social Services. This budget amendment is to revise the Department of Social Services budget based on changes in federal funds for program administration and energy assistance program direct payments. It's $99,503. No county dollars are requested. The next item is with the Sheriff's Office. This budget amendment appropriates donated funds to support the sheriff's swearing-in ceremony activities, $17,207. No county dollars are requested. The final item I have is with the fire districts, or with the fire district section, and this amendment is for the Nashville Fire Department. It's to appropriate $5,700 of their fund balance to purchase a storage shed for a rescue truck that's been moved outside. It's $5,700. No county dollars are requested.
Okay, there's 5 budget amendments. Any questions from commissioners on either of those 5?
Yes,
Bill,
under social service, the low-income assistance, is that coming from federal?
That is the federal dollars, additional federal money.
I mean, I didn't quite understand. Did you say
It is federal money.
it's federal? Yeah.
Other questions, Mr. Bellfield?
No, that's it. I was just, I was wondering if state funds were also involved in it. But
Any other questions on any other item? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve these 5 budget requests.
So moved.
second,
I have a motion by Commissioner Cone, second by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. We're now on item number 14. Thank you, Ms. Wood. Board appointments. Stacey, you got some for us this morning?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
The following board appointments need to be considered. The first is for the Farmers Market Advisory Board. On December 31st, 2018, terms for the Farmers Market Advisory Board members Brent Manning and Wendy Wheeler expired. The Cooperative Extension Services Director has submitted the names of former market manager Stephanie Collins to replace Wendy Wheeler and Margaret Maggie Lotta to replace Brent Manning, and their applications were attached in your agenda packet.
All right. Pleasure of the board on that recommendation.
move approval.
Moved by Mr. Bellfield.
Second.
Second by Mr. Outlaw. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? I don't think everybody voted, but I would take them all as yes. Stand approved. Next.
The next one is for the Carolinas Gateway Partnership Board of Directors. On December 31st, 2018, the terms for the Carolina Gateways Partnership Board of Directors member Calvin Balance expired. Mr. Balance is eligible and recommended for reappointment.
I had asked that this one be tabled, if you recall last time, because I hadn't been able to get up with Mr. Balance. I was able to talk to him. He is still in the area and wish to continue to serve, so I would recommend that we reappoint Mr. Balance.
I move. You offering a motion?
I asked for a motion.
Okay, well,
I got Ms. Richardson's motion. Will you second it, sir?
yes.
Okay, I have a
Second.
motion by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries.
The
Next.
next one is for the NEED Board of Directors. The Nash Edgecombe Economic Development Board of Directors has terms expiring for Marvin Arrington and Amy Pridgeon Hamlet. Ms. Pridgeon Hamlet was fulfilling the term previously held by Donna Boone. Both of these members are eligible and recommended for reappointment.
Does anybody know
Motion
if,
to approve?
give me 1 second, Mr. Bellfield. Anybody know if Mr. Arrington has been asked if he's okay to be reappointed? Has anybody contacted him?
He has been proposed by the nominating committee to be the next chairman, so.
Okay, so you would think so.
Yeah.
he's-
Okay, all right, that's fine. On the second one, which is a staff member, Ms. Hamlet has requested that we not reappoint her. to that position. Well, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. Let's go ahead and vote on, Mr. Arrington first. So, if I could get a motion to approve Mr. Arrington at this time. Moved by Ms. Richards, is there a second to that
Second.
request? Second by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Then dealing with the second one, which is our staff member, and Amy, certainly has the right to request not to be reappointed, which she has done. I personally would like to see us continue to have a staff person on that board. And I just think we need that representation there. Any thought from commissioners? Could we possibly table this till we find the appropriate staff member, Mr. Outlaw?
Well, would there be any interest from someone else in her department? I mean, maybe we should table it until we can determine that information.
I think that's the appropriate thing for us to do. Amy, can you help us with that?
If there's a way to have a closed session to speak with you guys,
I would have to let the attorney answer that question. He's probably gonna have to have more information. If you would get with Vince and tell him probably could fall under personnel, but if you could get with him in between our meetings, if it's allowed in closed session, we certainly can do that. But he would have to rule on that. That okay with you, sir? Okay. All right, so I think the best thing for us to do, Commissioner Outlaw, is for me to ask for a motion to table.
So moved.
All right, have a motion to table this one, until our next meeting. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Commissioner Richardson. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. If you would put that on our next, first of the month meeting.
Will do. And the last one is for the Town of Spring Hope Planning Board. The Town of Spring Hope approved reappointment of 2 extraterritorial jurisdiction members at their December meeting. Brian Brantley and Garfield Mills have been recommended for reappointment with the approval of this board.
Any questions on that recommendation? Not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Combs, second by Commissioner Richardson. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next one is, item 15 is the, monthly tax report for information purposes only. Mr. Wren, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As usual, the tax report is for informational purposes, and always glad to try to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of Mr. Wren on the tax report? Seeing none, we'll move to item 16, which is tax refunds.
Yes, sir, and of course, I need your approval to disperse the funds.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Mr.
I move
Bellfield.
approval.
I have a motion to approve the tax refunds as submitted. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richardson. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're now on item number 17, which is commissioner comments or anything, questions the commissioner may have. Is any comments, board members at this time, or questions? Seeing none, item 18, I had one, but I can't read my own writing. I may come back to you after I figure out what I wrote here. But item 18 is the manager's report, Mr. Nash.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, I did ask Nancy Nixon to remain. She was getting ready to leave, go back to her duties, but I wanted the board and the public to know that she is retiring as of the end of the month, and we will miss her service. We have advertised for her replacement, and we expect to make a decision on that replacement within the next week. Thank you for all your hard work.
I would say that's quite a surprise to me. I didn't know that one was coming, quite that soon. Has she got credentials to retire at this time?
Apparently,
34 years worth of. How long with the county, Ms. Dixon?
Almost 17.
I know you came from Rocky Mount, was all the rest of the time there? You want,
15 in Rocky
Yeah.
Mountain and 2 in Kingston.
okay. You would show the board that, set of paperwork, we'd consider, honoring your retirement request, ma'am. Just kidding with you, but, I would also like to say on behalf of the board how much we have third. So this will be, you got one more meeting to come to, a end of the month meeting, okay?
I'll work through February, and so I don't know how many days it is, it's a frighteningly small number, actually.
You work through February or till?
February 28th. Oh, okay. I thought it was February 1st.
Oh, you reported that wrong, Mr.
Yeah, I
Manager.
did. I sure
Okay.
did.
So we got another meeting.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
the morning.
Yeah.
We'll work up a speech, thank you speech between now and then, but just off the cuff, I greatly appreciate what you do. That department has many things they have to keep straight. And, always have done a great job of that. You make a lot of people mad, you make a lot of people happy. And even when you make happy, it probably takes longer than they want it to take to make them happy. But, got a great staff, and we certainly appreciate what you've done there.
And I won't let that timetable change the replacement calendar either.
You can just take off the month of February and come back the last day if you want.
No. We also have the vacancy for county engineer that I'm very hopeful that we can make an offer in the next week or two. The department heads are having a workshop/retreat on the Outer Banks. It is no charge. The county is not paying for any accommodations. So it will be a very frugal workshop retreat. And that'll be on Thursday, the 17th, and Friday, the 18th
Of January?
of January. This Friday, we'll have the dedication for the commemorative courtyard in front of this building at 2:30. That's this Friday at 2:30 p.m. Reminder that the second meeting this month will be on Tuesday, January 22nd, following the Martin Luther King holiday on the 21st. The Legislative Goals Conference in Raleigh will be Thursday and Friday of this week. We have several commissioners going, and I believe Mr. Bellfield's the voting delegate.
Mr.
Oh,
Webb.
okay. Ms. Wells is the voting delegate. And we hope to get out an RFP for the agriculture building sometime in the very, very near future. That's going to be a expensive but necessary project to replace the HVAC, the lighting, the walls will be stripped, and the wallpaper will be taken down and completely repainted. So
Upgrades in the restrooms.
upgrades in the restroom. It was built in 73, 74, and this will be a major upgrade for that facility. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Just to add on that last item, the board recently has asked us to look at that whole building in its entirety. Z, myself, and Mike Phillips, and a couple of more people we asked to come in, spent probably 3 or 4 hours going through there, making a list of items we felt needed to be done while we had it empty. which included the things that Mr. Lamb, just outlined. And so there will be several contracts coming to the board very shortly to, facilitate getting that work done. We've got a timeline that we need to try to get out of there and get our people back in there because of some events coming up. So it will move pretty quickly. So if you have any questions along the way, just let us know. Mr. Belfield?
Didn't you say construction was in 74?
That's what I wasn't here, but that's what I was told.
Well, I think somebody told you wrong. I remember, I was working for the county. We moved in August of 76.
Okay.
So,
Well, construction
so
probably
it
was in
didn't,
74.
it didn't sit there that long
Yeah.
before we moved in.
Yeah. It was in the
It was,
mid-70s.
it started construction in 75.
Gotcha,
And we moved in August of 76.
gotcha. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Stand corrected, don't you, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, could the county manager happen to be able to give us an update on the funding for the airport runway and
sir.
taxiway? and
Yeah.
Be glad to.
T-High?
Good question.
Be glad to. All the partners have agreed to the match. The three counties are putting in about $212,000 each, and the city of Rocky Mount, the city of Wilson, who have 2/7 share of the facility, will be putting in $424,000 each, and all entities have approved it, including
Has it
Wilson.
all been approved without any stipulations?
Just like this board, several made the stipulation that all members must participate in order for that funding to be appropriated, and all funding agencies have agreed.
I think it did come with a request for us to look at the tax situation, but not continued upon.
I'm not sure that was in the final, was it? It might have
I think it
been.
was.
Yeah, that's right. To look at, since it's located in Nash County, and planes stored there as of January 1 of each year are taxable to Nash County, the city of Wilson has asked that the county look at perhaps in the future providing some of that tax revenue for the airport operations. But it wasn't a condition of the award.
Correct. And that might be something we needed to put on the list to have a presentation by staff in the future to bring us the number of dollars we're talking about and what the actual request was, so we can, make sure we are.
Consider it.
Consider it.
Yeah, I'd like to do more than they've made a request. Now we need to close that loop.
That we do, yeah.
Okay.
We'll ask the staff to put together the numbers and then bring those to us with the staff's recommendation on what we should do with it. Mr. Outlaw, if that's okay?
Yeah, we did look at the January 2018 numbers, but we have not yet, because of listing time has just begun, we have not done it for this year yet. But we have an idea of how much tax revenue the county generates.
Just one final thing, you mentioned legislative goals. I know Ms. Wells is going to be our voting delegate there, I believe.
That's right.
Should we review any questions then that we would have regarding the goals that we received with Ms. Wells? I would assume that you'd want to take this information back when
I
you
would
have your
suggest
meeting.
you review them with Ms. McGee and Ms. Wells, since
Okay.
she formulated the list.
And when is that conference, Ms. Wells, that you'll be going?
It's this Friday, Thursday and Friday.
This
This
week?
This week,
Okay.
I better review them in there. I had a couple of questions myself that I was gonna get with.
I just want to make sure that when you express our concerns there, and then when you come back, we clearly understand exactly what that particular goal means, because what we've got is just a snapshot. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll review that with you, Ms. Wells and Ms. McGee.
Anything else?
Usually, at the short legislative conference, we look at the goals that we set for the big biennial. And if there's anything we want to take off, those that have been accomplished, naturally, they won't go back on.
Right.
And they just review the other ones, do they want to continue pushing those goals. It's not so much that it's gonna be new ones added on.
Right.
It's just gonna be, reviewing what we have and making a decision on what will be done about those. Whether we should go for, continue with them, delete them.
All right. Sounds good. The note that I made myself was, which I had already covered, I do expect that the GOP will have a recommendation on the 22nd as far as filling the vacant seat. So we should be able to take care of it on our next meeting in January, which will be Tuesday the 22nd. If we can make sure we calendar that on that agenda. And if something goes awry, we're not ready, we'll let you know, but I'm sure we'll be ready. With that said, that closes out the agenda. I would entertain a motion at this time to go into closed session for the purpose of economic development, personnel, and other matters of attorney-client privileges.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second? Second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. We will go recess for just a moment and go into closed session. Mr. Lamb, do we expect any action to be taken on behalf of the press?
I don't believe so, but as usual, if we take any action and no one's out here, we will contact you within an hour of the closed session.
Thank y'all for being here this morning. There is one action we need to take after a closed session, and it is concerning an appointment, the appointments to the need board. And at this time, I would entertain a motion concerning the need board appointment that we've already made, plus the future one, if the board member wishes to make that motion at this time.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, after further information and due to the fact that one other appointment for consideration and due to the appointment to the need board, we rescind the previous position and we'll reconsider both at a later date.
All right, the motion is by Ms. Richardson that we took action on one need appointment
Right.
previously. We tabled one other one. After further consideration, we decided we would rescind the previous action and take action on both of them at the same time. Is the motion understood, and is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, a motion by Ms. Richardson, second by Mr. Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Is there any other business before the board at this time?
I'm just sorry as the scribe, you couldn't read my print, so
That's okay.
I apologize.
No.
We should have had Janice.
No, we're just trying to correct an error that we made, and we want understanding of what we're doing.
Well, I don't think we made an error. I think we just need to consider both appointments at the same
Exactly,
time, the short and
exactly.
long route. If there's no further business, I'd entertain a motion to close the Board of Commissioners meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Combs, a second by Commissioner Outlaw and Ms. Wells. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? I stand adjourned.